Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome to our webinar, which is titled Innovative AI Tools for Businesses, Practical Applications and Trends. Today's webinar will last about 2 hours. Maybe we can go to the next slide. It's part of the SIFTA program, and yes, we rely on your interaction. So please feel free to ask questions. You can use the chat box. You can also make yourself visible throughout the webinar and ask the question. We have switched on recording. This is necessary for the publication purposes. Also, it's one of the requirements of the donor, and that is the European Commission. So, which generously sponsors the SIFTA program. The presentation, we'll share the presentation with you after the webinar. Yeah, it's a triviality to say that artificial intelligence is making big waves across various sectors. It offers us new, very exciting ways to enhance efficiency, drive productivity, etc., etc. But beyond those immediate gains, of course, we have lots of questions that we would like to get answers, and that is what is our evolving role in all of this in the world, which is augmented by intelligent machines, or how do we maintain autonomy or ensure human centricity when AI expands so rapidly. So lots of things, lots of issues, lots of perhaps doubts, but today we will not be discussing actually the specific philosophical or sociological dimensions of artificial intelligence, but we'll focus on the general trends that happen within the emergence of artificial intelligence, and we'll also discuss the practical applications within business processes, also including for the institutions that you work in, that is microfinance institutions or institutions supporting social economy. So our aim is really to equip all of you with understanding of these versatile AI technologies, and maybe also to pause and demonstrate where we are, just and what's going to happen, just maybe it will be also an opportunity to flash just a little lamp in our brains to just make us aware where we're really heading, just and what really is awaiting ahead of us. So leading us through this exploration is an expert who bridges actually the gap between cutting-edge AI and the real-world challenges that we all face, and that is Mikołaj Teichmann. Mikołaj has a lot of experience in business applications of artificial intelligence. Mikołaj is a graduate of London School of Economics. Also, for those of you who attended MFC conference in Krakow last year, you may remember Mikołaj participated in the meeting of CEOs, the CEO forum, where he also showed pathways of artificial intelligence and also gave us a few tips how to navigate all of those different AI-related trends. So let's go to the next slide. I have already mentioned that this webinar is part of the SIFTA program. We talked a lot about it, so let me quickly go through it. It's a European Commission designed special program for microfinance practitioners that offers technical assistance to microfinance institutions. This technical assistance, what is more important, is totally free of charge. It also has an exchange and peer lending program, so institutions that participate in this program can visit other practitioners, can attend for free different fora that are about inclusive finance or social economy and social enterprises. So let's move to the next slide. This program has actually two parts, two legs. So one leg is advisory, capacity building, and the program of exchanges, of visits. And there is also an assessment portion, an assessment part. And this part has a name to prepare institutions for the certification of the Code of Good Conduct, which, as you probably all know, is a special standards, special standard for microfinance practitioners in the EU. It's also a prerequisite to accessing EU funding. So those institutions that have not yet been assessed by Microfinanza Rating, who is the partner for this part, will have to go through the assessment process, get certified, and then they can access European funding. It's a privileged type of funding, as you all know. There's subsidy involved. There are all kinds of instruments to support microfinance. As I said, the prerequisite is to get certified on the Code of Good Conduct. So let's move to the next slide. I already said that it's an EU-wide program, so unfortunately institutions from outside of the EU cannot access it, but we are all trying, MFCs trying to convince European institutions, the European Commission to extend this program at least to the candidate countries, to the countries that are accessing the EU. It is for MFIs, but also for the providers of finance to social enterprises. So also to impact investors, incubators, accelerators that support social enterprises. And the next slide, please. I already mentioned the Microfinanza Rating, which is the institution that is responsible for institutional assessment. Maybe I should say here that these institutions that would like to go through this assessment and get certified can also get free of charge technical support, technical advice, how to go through this, how to improve their policies, their system, to be compliant with the Code of Good Conduct. And this advice is provided by the left side of this slide, and that is 3 institutions that are implementing the SIFTA program, and it is the Frankfurt School of Finance and Management Microfinance Center and the European Microfinance Network. And let's go to the next slide. So this is where you can get more information. If you're interested in signing up for this program, you can simply write to this EIB email address, sifta@eib.org. I just got updated by my colleagues, MFC colleagues, that the program is open till the end of the year, although all of the partners, SIFTA partners, are working to extend it for a longer time period. So there is a high likelihood that we'll be able to offer SIFTA beyond 2025. But so far, it's the end of the year. So if you are interested, please sign up. There is actually a long waiting list. It's over 140 institutions that are currently trying to get access to the benefits of this program. More than 60 are benefiting from it. So 60 institutions from the EU are active in receiving technical assistance or participating in the peer exchange program. I should have mentioned that the left part of the previous slide and that is MFC, the Frankfurt School, and European Microfinance Network offer the technical assistance, which is done delivered through 15 days of technical assistance on a topic of the institutional choice. So we do not impose anything. What we are trying to do is to provide support in the areas that are selected by beneficiaries of the program, being not just marketing, be it financial management, digital transformation, you name it, all human resources, all the possible areas of your institution's engagements. Also a couple of words about the upcoming SIFTA events. On Tuesday, the 6th of May, we'll have a webinar on improving digital and green skills of microfinance clients. And this webinar, the experts in this webinar will be actually practitioners from Bosnia and Herzegovina, from one of the pioneer MFIs active in green finance, offering energy efficiency and renewable energy loans to their clients. They have a very smart way of improving those skills, not through dedicated training and rather extensive class meetings, but through introducing platforms that on the way to the adequate loan products teach their clients how to use these products, but also just what sort of gains they can have through by introducing those green products, how to calculate benefits of introducing them. So a very interesting and innovative way of looking at client education actually through regular service delivery. So I would like to invite you very warmly to this webinar. I should also mention that our biggest and most significant of the year, and that is the MFC conference, is coming up this year in Tbilisi from 27th to 29th of May. As last year, we'll also have a very interesting CEO from CEO meeting with very interesting agenda. On top of that, 2 days of conference sessions, meetings, and various networking opportunities. There are over 400 people who have already registered, and plus, if you haven't been in Georgia yet, then it's imperative that you go and visit this wonderful country. Okay, so good. So now over to Mikołaj. Please try to be as interactive as possible and ask any questions you can think of relating to AI. You can also place your name and institution's name in the chat function so that we can get to know each other better, all of us better. And we wanted to kick off with actually a quick poll. So if you could respond to these questions, I think that would be great. So the question is, to what extent is your organization currently utilizing AI-powered tools? And we have AI-powered tools and also solution in its operations, and we have 5 answers: not at all, exploring and researching, artificial intelligence, implementing AI in a few specific areas, actively using AI in multiple departments, processes, and AI is a core part of our operational strategy. So please take a second to respond to this poll. We're very curious about the answers. And could we actually see the responses? Maybe before we see the responses, I will ask Mikołaj to to kick off today's session, and we will take a second to. Oh, they're coming right now. So, surprisingly, there is a group that is not using AI in their operations. 41% of the respondents said exploring and researching AI. Another group of 18% of respondents said implementing AI, that they're implementing AI in a few specific areas. 9% actively using AI in multiple departments, processes, and 5% say that AI is a core part of our operational strategy. So that's really interesting. Mikołaj, are you surprised with the responses? What do you
No,
think?
hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. No, I would in fact say that the distribution of responses is fairly typical. Speaking from my experience as a trainer, it's actually surprising how many organizations are not yet actively using or utilizing AI.
Okay.
Are on at the beginning stages of trying to understand the potential of this technology. So I would say the distribution is fairly representative
Okay.
of business in general, which can be a bit surprising because often even large and well, technologically advanced, or at least institutions that portray themselves as technologically advanced, turn out to be at the beginning stages of implementing and exploring artificial intelligence. So not really surprised, no.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that I'm also surprised by this first group. I thought that by this time, this group be of a minimal size of maybe 1-2%. So it's a bit surprising. So I hope this webinar will help you to get into the nitty-gritty of AI, and we will encourage you to actively use it in your operations. So Mikołaj, over to you.
Thank you very much. The agenda for today, our meeting will be until 2 o'clock, and in the time, first of all, I want to start with a brief introduction to artificial intelligence. And seeing that many of our participants are at the beginning stages of the AI journey, I think this will be useful to have a basic understanding of what AI is and how it's working, and what makes it such a transformative technology, because this is a deeply transformative technology in every area of work and in very many areas of our life in general. And then I will focus on the most important of current artificial intelligence tools, namely large language models. And we'll discuss the frontline LLMs and their strengths, their weaknesses, and their general capabilities. Because AI, unlike many other tools in its LLM incarnation, so the example being ChatGPT, is a technology that is nearly universal. That is, we can use it to very many. We can apply it to very many different processes. We can use it to optimize a very wide range of tasks, unlike some other computer applications that we're used to. So, for example, a CRM is a tool designed for a specific use, as is Microsoft Word, and so on. Artificial intelligence and large language models are general purpose tools for delegating intellectual tasks, and I want to expand on why that is and how we can utilize it to our advantage. I also want to take a little detour into a big trend in artificial intelligence that's becoming quite popular recently, namely vibe coding, that is creating computer applications without advanced knowledge of programming or without writing code. And this represents fantastic opportunities, I think, especially for small organizations to develop their own business tools and ad hoc applications that can be utilized in a number of ways. Then I'll move on to the developing ecosystem of specialist AI tools, large language models being these general tools. There's also a complementary ecosystem of specialist tools for various uses, and we'll discuss several of them as they can be well useful in the context of microfinance and social financing institutions. And I also mentioned AI tool aggregators, where you'll be able to find tools that are tailored to your specific needs, because this ecosystem is very big and rapidly getting bigger. So it's quite impossible to keep up with everything that's developing in every area of business. And then we'll finish off with the subject of AI automation and another large trend in artificial intelligence, namely AI agents. We'll discuss what they are, how we should think about them in the context of business, and how we can, or rather where we can develop our own AI agents. So first of all, let's start with defining some the basic terms, namely what is artificial intelligence, and well, why not ask artificial intelligence to explain what it is. So here's an answer that ChatGPT gave me yesterday as I was preparing this presentation. Artificial intelligence is basically when computers or machines are designed to think and act like humans, or at least solve problems, learn from experience, and perform tasks that usually need human intelligence. And this is a fairly good definition of artificial intelligence. In fact, it's very reminiscent of any official definition you'll find in any dictionary. And what's characteristic of this definition is this reference to human intelligence. Right? We say that AI is a computer program that can solve problems that require human intelligence. Right? Without further defining what human intelligence is usually, and which is somewhat unsatisfactory, because human intelligence is a somewhat vague term. There's also many kinds of intelligence, so it might be useful to specify it or to concretize it a little bit more. And I think a very useful way of understanding what kinds of tasks that require this special kind of human intelligence is to think of them in terms of algorithms, or other tasks that cannot be easily reduced or cannot at all be reduced to an algorithm. Or in other words, a precise procedure for solving a given task. These would be tasks that require some flexibility, that usually require awareness and interpretation of context, some degree of abstract thinking, and they might rely on ambiguous and precise data. And it might be difficult to think of an example of such a task in abstract until we think about it, but because in fact these are the kind of tasks that we perform all the time intuitively without even thinking about it. And an example of such a task is recognizing the animals on this picture, right? We know instantly, we don't have to think about it, we don't have to follow any procedure to determine that the creature on the left is a dog, the creature on the right is a cat. But when asked how we do it, namely what features do we take as key for a cat to be a cat, or what features are essential for a dog to be a dog? Well, when we look at these two animals, it's very unclear what those features might be. They both have a pair of ears. Dog's ears can be pointy, or cat's ears can be flappy, right? This is not a universal feature. They have a pair of eyes that can be in the same color. They both have whiskers. They can have very similar colors. And yet we do this task of recognizing these animals without even thinking about it. But when asked what procedure do we follow to determine which one's a cat, which one's a dog, we can't give such a procedure. It's impossible to give a foolproof procedure that would perform this task each time. And when we think about it, most tasks that we perform every day, that we apply our human minds to, turn out to be such tasks. For instance, well, generalizing from the previous example, recognizing complex objects in general is an example of such a task, especially face recognition, right? We do not follow a procedure for recognizing faces of our friends, right? We don't ask ourselves whether they have the right eye color or whether the profile looks the same in each angle, or whether there isn't a procedure that would be possible to develop that would enable us to tell our friends' faces from each other, and yet we do this instinctively. Creativity is another such example. When I give you the task to paint a beautiful painting, it would be impossible to develop a precise procedure for painting a beautiful painting, and we can recognize that one when we see one. And crucially, for our purposes, language use is also an example of such a task, which I will move on to shortly. And the solution of, well, if we want to teach a computer to solve a non-algorithmic task, so these tasks that require this special kind of human intelligence, we cannot do this by just programming a computer to do it, because we cannot develop this precise procedure, right? The procedure that can be then replicated in code for achieving the task. We have to come up with a different solution. And this solution in computer science is artificial neural networks. And artificial neural networks are computer systems that approximate the behavior of human brains, or hence the name artificial neural networks, in that they learn by example, rather than being specifically instructed, rather than following explicit rules, in a similar way that humans learn, right? Because, well, as children, we were never given the definition of a cat and the procedure for determining what is a cat and what is a dog. We just saw enough cats and saw enough dogs that now we can perform this task of recognizing a cat from a dog instinctively, intuitively, right? We've sort of internalized the features that make a cat and make a dog without being able to explicitly tell what those features are, yet we have internalized them, right? So instead of, so if I want a computer to perform the same kind of task, instead of programming rules, specifying whether it has whiskers or what kinds of ears it has, because we saw that's an impossible procedure to develop, the network learns by observing millions or a large enough set of pictures of cats and dogs, and then it also internalizes by changing its internal functions. It's a complicated process which we'll go into, but the network is able to adaptively internalize the features that make a cat and make a dog, with the result being that after the stage of training, such a neural network is able to distinguish between those two kinds of objects, right? So this general approach of learning by example and the technology of neural networks gives us a way to solve problems that we can't solve with these traditional algorithmic coding methods. And this is crucial in another area of computer science, the so-called natural language processing, which aims to make computers understand and use natural language. Not by natural language, I mean the language we use every day, the language I'm using right now. And the crucial thing to realize is that language use is also non-algorithmic, right? We cannot develop a precise procedure from using for using language, because it's far too complex. It's far too complex dependent to be reduced to any finite procedure, right? We can create pretty much endless new valid combinations, meaningful combinations of words and sentences. We can easily understand sentences that we've never heard before, right? It's very hard to see how a procedure could be developed for doing that. But also crucially, because we can proceduralize, if I may put it that way, things like understanding grammar, right? We've had autocorrect features in Microsoft Word and other tools for many years now, and they don't surprise us at all that Microsoft Word can understand an ungrammatical sentence. But by language use, by competent language use, I mean something deeper than just grammatical or orthographical correctness or correctness in spelling. I mean understanding meaning and context, for instance, if I say socks have been cooking time for breakfast, right? This is a perfectly grammatical sentence. There's nothing wrong with it that Microsoft Word could be able to detect, and yet we instantly recognize this sentence as meaningless, right? It makes no sense to put these words in those kinds of context together, because it just doesn't give us any picture of what is really happening, right? This sentence describes nothing. So if we want a computer program to understand language on this deep level of understanding meaning of context, we also need a solution that can perform that can learn to perform non-algorithmic tasks, such as advanced languages. And the solution to this problem in the case of language is the large language model. Now, this was the large language models are the result of a technological breakthrough that came in 2017 when a new neural network architecture called the transformer was developed. And this new transformer architecture led directly to the development of the series of GPT language models, GPT standing for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, right? Hence the famous acronym. And the current ChatGPT is direct descendants of this line of large language models, and they are, as opposed to networks meant to recognize cats from dogs, they're not trained on pictures of animals. They're trained of extremely large text data sets. One could say metaphorically that they've read the entire internet. In fact, they've read somewhat more than the entire internet. They've also read open source libraries, lots of technical manuals, specialist texts, and so on and so forth. This allowed them to understand the deep structures of meaning present in natural language, to such an extent that they can also understand such thing as humor, such thing as irony, such thing as cultural context, and how sense emerges from those deep structures of meaning. So we could say that LLMs are machines for understanding and manipulating language in a nutshell, right? And this is what large language models are, and this is the fundamental technology between the current what's called the generative AI revolution, and the reason why everybody has been talking about AI for the past well over 2 years now, since the release of ChatGPT, in fact, because this is where we could say the generative AI revolution started. And when I say generative AI, as opposed to AI in general, I mean specifically the kind of AI that is capable of generating new content, as the name suggests. And this content could be text, but it could be also images, it could be audio, it could be voice, it could be video, since recently, 3D models, and other modalities of content. The key thing being that this content generated by GenAI, it resembles, but it does not simply reproduce the content they were trained on, right? So it can creatively use the understanding of those deep structures of meaning, this semantic understanding of language, to generate new linguistic phrases and use language in new creative ways in a similar way that a human would. And the mechanism of achieving this, the mechanism by which LLMs are capable of understanding language, is actually deceptively simple, because all an LLM such as ChatGPT does is predict what likely comes next, right? In case of ChatGPT, this is what comes next in a piece of text or a conversation, more specifically, but this could also be a piece of code, a sequence of pixels in case of generating images, and so on. So we can think of LLMs as they might be called prediction engines, right? They work by predicting the next token, which we can understand as the next word for our purposes, in a given context, right? So one analogy that we can use to understand this better is the old autocomplete mechanism from mobile phones from a few decades ago. They had this mechanism that would complete our text message for us, right? Based on the previous syllable, it would suggest the next syllable. Later, it would suggest the next word based on the previous word. Me personally, I hated those tools. They were never capable of helping me in any meaningful way, or really predicting what I wanted to say next. In contrast to Nokia 3310, an LLM such as ChatGPT doesn't take into account just the last syllable or the last word in predicting what comes next. It can potentially take into account hundreds of thousands of words, each of which will have some degree of influence over its prediction of what comes next. So this is what gives it this deep understanding of context and meaning. This is quite far more complicated from a technological perspective than I'm portraying here with this analogy, but of course we don't have the space today to go into that. But the crucial breakthrough in this new transformer architecture was what's called the attention mechanism, which we can think of as a feature that allows each word in the context of a large language model. It allows each word to see each other word and then determine how the meaning of one word can change the meaning of another word, because, well, one of the things that makes language use so complicated is its context dependency, right? How we use words in a certain context can, well, or rather the same words used in a certain context can mean something radically different than the very same words you used in a different context. And the context which changes their meaning can be quite far away in a piece of text or in any piece of information. And the ability to understand this nuanced relationship of meaning is what's enabled by this so-called attention mechanism. And when the large language model predicts the next word or the next token, what it sees is a certain distribution of probability. Certain distributions can be wide, meaning it can have many different ways of completing a given sentence or a given sequence of text, such as in a sentence, well, she said, I never. There can be a number of ways to finish that very simple sentence, of course. But then there could be also narrow distributions of probability, such as in a sentence, I ate the pizza while it was still, well, it probably ends with hot, right? And there are some other options, but what our minds automatically suggest in this case is hot. And this is also what the large language model would see, because this is part of the knowledge it extracted from its training data when it was reading the entire internet, quote unquote. Now, and this deceptively simple mechanism of predicting the next likely token, given the context, while being deceptively simple, I want to suggest, following one of the fathers of current AI technology, Ilya Sutskever, until recently the chief science officer at OpenAI, I want to suggest that this simple mechanism opens the doors to something rather profound, and which is why this enabled the development of artificial intelligence. In one interview, Ilya Sutskever said, "What does it mean to predict the next token or the next word well enough? It's a deeper question than it seems. Predicting the next word well enough means that you understand the underlying reality that led to the creation of that token." And I think there's something to it when we observe the operation of large language models, and we know that, well, fundamentally all they do is predict the next token in the sequence, and yet these amazing abilities emerge. I think this conclusion is hard to resist, that it really does open the door to something quite profound. And it turned out that language, or rather the deep structures of language and understanding those deep structures, were key in achieving artificial intelligence. So I think the sentiment of the importance of language was well captured by Yuval Noah Harari in an interview shortly after the premiere of GPT-4 in March 2023, when speaking for the New York Times, he said, "Language is the operating system of human culture. From language emerges myth, law, gods and money, art and science, friendships and nations, and computer code," which might be a rather lofty turn of phrase, but I think it's quite apt when we realize that, well, language is absolutely essential for the creation and transmission of culture, but not just culture, because modern economies, especially modern service economies, also run on language, so to speak. When we think about it, most jobs in the service economy are fundamentally about either processing information, creating content, applying expert knowledge, making decisions, communicating, analyzing data. And when we think about it, all of those tasks are performed using language. These are language-based tasks. When we go into a board meeting with the aim of making a business decision, the tool used to arrive at that decision is primarily language, right? We discuss different strategies, different options, different pros and cons, right? We do it via language, right? The tool that I'm transmitting information to you right now is language, right? This is a language-based task that I'm doing, and so on and so forth. In fact, most jobs or most tasks in an advanced service economy will be language-based tasks. And as such, these are the kinds of tasks that will have the most exposition or already have the most exposition to large language models. And to illustrate this point, I will share a diagram that I already shared last year at the MFC conference in Krakow, but I think it's poignant in this context. This is a diagram developed by the consulting corporation Accenture, showing the impact of large language models on the different sectors of the American economy, and with different colors indicating either a high potential for automation, high potential for augmentation, which is a different approach to utilizing AI, which I'll speak to, which I'll speak about later, and low potential for augmentation automation, and then non-language tasks. And we see that banking tops the list with 54% of all worked time in that sector, right? Because this is what these percentages represent. Having a high exposition to this technology, 12% of tasks having a medium exposition, and 24% of tasks having a low exposition. This is followed by the insurance sector, software and platforms, capital markets, and energy when it comes to the American economy. And the list is closed by consumer goods and services, chemicals, and natural resources, where the percentage of tasks or the percentage of work time in these industries is relatively lowest, but still quite high. So even in sectors not typically associated with services or with strictly intellectual intellectual tasks or language tasks, the effects of this technology will be quite profound. And I want to direct your attention to the content in the red box, where Accenture sums up this diagram by saying that 40% of working hours across all industries can be impacted by large language models. Why is this the case? Language tasks account for 62% of total work time in the US. Of the overall share of language tasks, 65 have high potential to be automated or augmented by LLM. So this shows what I indicated on the previous slide, that language tasks constitute a surprisingly large share of all tasks and of all work time in the modern economy, and therefore, and therein lies really the revolutionary potential of this technology. That is the first technology that can understand and process human language in a fashion similar to us. This is also
so excuse me, Mikołaj, if we could go back to this previous slide. What the 40% means, that means what? Is this demonstrating to what extent the workforce?
This doesn't mean that 40% of work will disappear, or that it will replace 40% of humans in a given sector. Rather, this is the amount of the share of worked time, right? So the tasks accounting for about 40% of all work time in that sector have a high potential to be automated by this technology, by some of the processes that we'll show later. So, for instance, marketing automation or automating aspects of communication would fall into that category. creating content, creating sales offers, right? Analyzing data, things like that, right?
So 40% of currently human working hours can be in future impacted by those large language models.
Exactly,
Okay.
right, to a high degree, right? And
To a high
then
degree.
to a lower, and then there are some other tasks that will change how we perform certain tasks, but not so radically as the tasks in purple, right?
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Similar diagram shows the same sort of levels of impact that large language models can have, but at this time divided not by economic sectors, but by job categories. We'll have office and administrative support jobs on top, then sales and related, computer and mathematical, and so on. And what I wanted to point to here is that legal jobs, while have 33% of high potential for automation, there's almost no tasks in the legal profession that won't have some degree of exposition into this technology. And the reason being that, well, when we think about it, the legal profession is almost entirely conducted via language, right? Whether we argue in courts or write precedents or I don't know, file for divorce, this is all done in language, either spoken or written. So the legal profession is one of those professions that will see some of the biggest impacts from this technology down the line, anyway. The reason I wanted to point to this, to the fundamental role of language in a modern service economy, is that it's narrowing to think of this technology as merely a technology for generating content, as is typical, right? Because it's called generative AI, and we typically think of these tools as tools for, well, generating, or at least these will be the lowest hanging fruits, right? Of generating marketing copy or other content. I want to suggest that it's better to think of these tools, better to think of large language models as systems for delegating language-related aspects of thinking, right? Or for delegating more broadly this intellectual labor and knowledge-based work that is performed in language, such as the tasks I gave as examples. And we can think of this as in a way similar to counting, right? A long time ago, we delegated counting to machines, which up until then was a highly intellectual and also reserved only for humans activity, right? No animals could count, and before calculators, no machines could count. Suddenly, we could delegate that aspect of thinking to machines. And so today, rather than when we need the result of a calculation in some kind of analysis or a thinking process that we're performing in our heads, we don't do the calculation ourselves. We delegate it to a calculator. The calculator returns the result, then we take the result, and then we continue on with the thinking process. Now we can extend that paradigm of delegating intellectual processes to also tasks that are language-based, that we perform in language. And as we saw, these turn out to be quite an extensive range of tasks. And hence the transformative potential of this technology, I would say so transformative that we can call an element, a large language model, an intellectual engine. Because similarly, just as the steam engine and then later the electric and combustion engines enabled us for the first time in history to scale physical labor without scaling muscle mass, human or horse, depending. Similarly, large language models for the first time in history enable us to scale intellectual labor without scaling the number of brain cells involved, right? We can use artificial neurons rather than human brain cells in order to delegate intellectual labor. So I would say that this is a better way to think of generative AI in a way that fully captures the transformative potential of this technology. So moving on now to more concrete aspects of this technology. Let's first of all develop a typology of various generative AI tools. So first of all, we can speak of general. My apologies. There's part of the slide isn't published by omission. General purpose tools, which are mostly textual tools, namely meaning that we communicate with them via text. These are the so-called large language models, and also the multimodal models that can process not just text but also images, for example, simultaneously with text. And the examples of these are ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Microsoft Copilot, which we'll discuss in a moment. Then there is a separate category of tools that are visual models for generating images. And since recently there's also more and more advanced tools for developing video, generative video. This technology is not strictly based on large language models, although large language models are integrated into those solutions. They are mostly so-called diffusion models, and examples of tools in this category are DALL-E, Midjourney, and Stable Diffusion when it comes to pictures. When it comes to video, generative video, the current state-of-the-art tools are Sora from OpenAI, Veo from Google, and Runway, which is an independent company. So this is a separate category of visual models. We won't be going into those, but it's worthwhile knowing about them. And then I would also say that the separate category is constituted by sound models for processing and generating voice and music. And here some notable tools and platforms include Suno and Udio for generating music, and 11 Labs, which is the premier solution for anything connected to voice. So for instance, voice AI agents that can replace human customer assistants, or at least are beginning to be developed to such an extent that it can replace human assistants, voice cloning, and so on and so forth. And then there's a separate category of specialist AI tools, which are tools that are tailored to a specific case, a specific use case, for instance, developing a personalized marketing copy or financial analysis or transcription of meetings, on project management or any such typical business task, but then integrated or built around the capabilities of large language models. And so most of these tools will have will have a connection to one of these flagship large language models and utilize the capabilities in a context of a specific task and a specialist interface. And we'll see examples of a few such tools, and I'll also show you where to find more of them.
And so are these tools free of charge, or
that it varies. Most of the tools will have some. It will offer you some capability free of charge or in a freemium model. But then, in order to access more advanced capabilities, you usually need some kind of subscription. That is a typical model. Okay. But it varies from tool to tool, and there are tools that allow for surprisingly much, even in the free tier, and can be used as such also in the business context.
Great.
So large language models, just very broadly speaking, I said they are general purpose tools, and so let's specify that a little bit more. And I already said that thinking of these tools, these generative AI tools, as merely for generating new content, well, that's definitely the case, that we can use them for generating new content, but there's also the lowest hanging fruit of these tools, so to speak. But of course, we can, for instance, develop quite advanced and scalable marketing copy using large language models, developing templates of documents, of first drafts of the procedures, forms, any kind of document and documentary style information can be simply generated by with these tools. But then climbing up the this fruit tree, we get to creating intelligent and flexible information flows, right? Which is, I think, more fruitful and useful use of this technology. So, for example, one of the really best use cases for everyday use of AI is transcribing meetings. There's a number of tools for dedicated to this task, and many AI integrations are also being offered in the popular meeting applications such as Microsoft Teams or Zoom that we're using right now. Since recently there's an AI assistant as well. And what this allows us is to transcribe the meeting live, or to transcribe a meeting that we have a recording of, and then use the transcription to process that information in an intelligent and flexible way. So, for instance, well, in a business meeting, in an online business meeting, there's usually some unfortunate soul whose task afterwards is to summarize the meeting and develop bullet points or some kind of action plan based on the meeting, and then send the email to everybody else. Well, now this can be entirely automated, or almost entirely automated, with just a slight human oversight to check if everything in such a summary is included, and then sending it out, so potentially saving quite a bit of time, and also saving someone from performing an intellectually demanding but also a tedious and boring task, which is the general category of tasks we can think of when thinking about automating and optimizing things with LLMs, and essentially tasks that require this special kind of human intelligence. So we cannot reduce them to a simple procedure. Require our engagement, right? They do engage our intellectual resources, right? We tire performing those tasks, but at the same time they're tedious, right? They're not interesting for us. We don't like performing it. They are repetitive, but they require flexibility, right? So these are the kinds of tasks that are perfect for LLMs and for creating automations with LLMs for such tasks. Climbing further up this fruit tree, I'd say that we can use large language models as what I like to call a competence lever. Meaning that we can use these tools to extend our own expertise into domains that we can't reach, that we don't quite reach with. So, for example, I have a very basic knowledge of programming. I only know a little bit of Python, a few basic libraries, some syntax, but nothing really beyond that. Thanks to large language models, I can use my own limited understanding of programming, of the various programming architectures, functions, and the types of code that can be used, and instruct AI in an intelligent way. Well, instruct AI utilizing expert knowledge, right? To guide it, or rather to let it guide me into developing applications and solutions in code that go well beyond what I would normally be able to do. Obviously, scaling personal productivity and saving time. If we can develop a personalized sales offer based on a meeting transcript with a client, for example, and then using a template of our own and sales offer, if we can use those two sources of information, transform them flexibly using an LLM in order to personalize such a sales offer, we're saving time, and if, say, in a day I was previously able to maybe prepare 3 or 4 such offers, now thanks to LLMs I can double or triple that number quite easily. In fact, we can be speaking of 5-fold or even 10-fold increases in productivity in certain tasks, and when certain sensible optimizations and automations are done. Another case would also be reaching for abilities that were just outright inaccessible previously, and one example of this, I actually saw a job advertisement for this, translating between languages that you do not know, right? So, for example, you're fluent in English and Italian, only those languages, but your job is to translate from Chinese to Arabic, right? Using AI. That is your job. And while I wouldn't recommend doing such things in context that well, where the cost of error is high, or where the responsibility for committing for possible faults in context of high responsibility in general, I can see, or at least we could see how one could develop a procedure that, while not foolproof, would ensure a high degree of confidence that such translations are performed competently, even though I cannot verify the final result myself, right? I can sort of translate 5 separate times from the first document into the language that I know, then translate from that language into that language, then from that language back into a language that I know, also a few separate times to make sure that each time the translation is correct, and this in this way build up my level of confidence in the final solution. So we can also think of a competence level as allowing us to reach for something that was just outright inaccessible for us previously, if we know how to sort of safeguard the process to make sure that some critical mistakes do not occur. I wouldn't recommend using AI far away from our field, from our own field of expertise, at least for now. But it's certainly becoming possible, and we'll see an example of that with vibe coding. And then I would say that the top of this tree is using AI as an intellectual and creative partner. So we can quite brilliantly brainstorm ideas or ideate on a quite abstract level if we know how to prompt properly. I should add. So, for instance, developing new ideas and concept, or expanding some ideas that you have, considering different angles, how to tackle certain problems. Any task that requires some high degree of abstract creativity or non-conventional thinking, again with appropriate prompting, these are excellent tools for such tasks. Or something, what I would call directing literature, right? So rather than writing literature or storytelling yourself, you direct AI to write in partnership with, right? So say as a writer you don't like writing I don't know, dialogues, right? Dialogues are your weak spot. So you would ask AI to sort of give you suggestions for how to develop certain dialogue, then some natural phrases to use in the dialogue, then sort of correct the AI that, well, this is not really consistent with this character, or I want this to be a little bit more adversarial, or, well, this should end in such a way as to allow something else to happen later, and so on and so forth. So rather than typing each word myself, I direct AI to make it create the dialogue or the piece of literature, utilizing its own capabilities, but under my control, under my creative control, which I can well, delegate to such a degree as I wish, right? Because obviously I can just ask AI to write a short story for me, and end at that. But I would suggest that the true potential and the true shine of these tools only emerges when we also fully engage our own intelligence and sort of treat them as partners in extending our own capabilities in the context of such a creative process, or any kind of process. And because in order to make those tools really perform at their best level, we need to engage our own intellect, our own expert knowledge, in order to expertly direct them, or in order to invoke the expert knowledge that they already possess, right? For instance, we need to know the correct terminology in order to utilize that knowledge, right? So it's not that AI will replace expert knowledge, right? Expert use of AI will require expert knowledge. I would say for a long time yet, if not indefinitely. But it definitely, with correct understanding, with correct prompting, and it can significantly enhance the work of experts. So coming now to these flagship large language models that I mentioned, which are these general purpose tools that we can use for any number of tasks, from writing tweets to generating code to analyzing spreadsheets. There's more than just ChatGPT. There's quite a number of competitors, although not that many, really a handful. And the most important ones are listed here. So starting with the first and the most known one. Well, no, before we move on to that, this is an LLM leaderboard accessible at llmarea.ai, where there's a sort of live competition between the different top AI models. It changes constantly as to what model is on top. But at the moment, this is from this morning, Gemini 2.5, which I'll show in a second, is considered the best worldwide model, followed closely by OpenAI's O3. So ChatGPT, which premiered in October of 2022, was the first LLM to capture the world's attention, being also the first chatbot that one could hold a sensible conversation with. Its provider is OpenAI. Its newest models, because these large language models that operate in these chatbots, or these chat interfaces, as we can call them, such as ChatGPT. The newest models are GPT-4o, which is a so-called non-reasoning model, and its newest reasoning model is O3. I'll move on. I'll say in a bit what this distinction is between reasoning and non-reasoning models, but it's important to make that distinction here. When it comes to strengths of ChatGPT, its newest reasoning model, OpenAI O3, in my estimation, is likely the most intelligent AI currently available. It's estimated that its intelligence quotient, so the measurable IQ, is around 140 IQ points. If I'm not mistaken, and well, it shows in conversation. Let me just put it that way. It really, in my own experience, outpaces other models in terms of sheer raw intelligence, so to speak. Its basic general purpose model, which is non-reasoning but also quite a bit less expensive, GPT-4o, is also an excellent overall model for a whole range of tasks. Not really one specific task that it's best at, but it's a very good overall model. What makes ChatGPT stand out, especially in comparison to its competitors, is the advanced image generation mode. OpenAI recently solved the common problem of these image generation models, namely that they cannot produce legible text. They would normally, up until recently, generative AI models designed for image generation would produce letters, but they would normally be garbled or nonsensical, or it couldn't use letters in any meaningful way, just as some of those images, really. So since recently, GPT-4 also solved this problem, and we can now reliably produce images that contain textual information as well. And we also have with ChatGPT advanced voice mode, which can not just understand the spoken language and then communicate in spoken language. It can also understand the nuance of language, so information we convey not through the words that we speak, but by intonation, say, or by pauses that we make, or by these other non-verbal modes of communication. Weaknesses of ChatGPT, well, not many, can be said to include limits on its most advanced models. And also the cost, right? So O3, for example, this most advanced AI in the world today, we only have the limit of 25 responses per week on a ChatGPT Plus subscription. More if we have a Pro subscription, which costs $200 a month. So not that affordable for everyday users, really. And also ChatGPT tends to be censored in certain respects. For instance, it will refuse to generate images of public figures, or even discuss them in a sort of non-politically correct way, let's just say. So it's sort of censored in that regard. Another alternative solution to ChatGPT, still in this range of general use tools, is, and becoming more and more popular, is Microsoft Copilot, developed by Microsoft. This solution is based on OpenAI's technology, so in terms of its abilities, it's comparable to the GPT series of models, but then they're all broadly comparable anyway. Its major strength as a solution, as an AI system, is its integration into the Office 365 ecosystem, meaning that we can use Copilot from within Microsoft Word, we can use it from within Microsoft PowerPoint, we can use it from within Microsoft Excel. We can also make it utilize files in a company SharePoint, and then any other files that are in our business file ecosystem if we use Microsoft's solutions. So quite a comprehensive tool, thanks to its integration with the Microsoft ecosystem. And well, since Microsoft has very broad penetration, very broad and deep penetration into organizations, and of all sizes, really, I fully expect Microsoft Copilot to become, if not the default, certainly the leading AI solution or AI system in terms of its usage, right? Because we'll be able to use, we're already able to use a Copilot from within Microsoft Word, and then, for example, refer from within Microsoft Word to a conversation transcript that we had on Microsoft Teams with our colleagues, where we discussed some business strategy or particularities of a certain business offer, and then use that knowledge to develop a document based on that knowledge, right? So these are the kind of flexible information flows that are becoming possible thanks to these native integrations. And Microsoft Copilot is certainly leading the way in that. Its weaknesses include some uneven performance. I would say that in many cases, a similar prompt within Microsoft Word will not produce such good results as a similar prompt in the newest model of ChatGPT. But this quickly changes. So as Microsoft updates its solutions, this might well, I would in fact expect that it will rapidly improve. Yes, and then moving on. Another alternative to ChatGPT in terms of general purpose AI tools is Claude, provided by Anthropic, a competitor to OpenAI. And the strength of this tool is it's an optional extended thinking mode, meaning that it can be both a reasoning and a non-reasoning model, and more on that in a bit. What particularly Claude excels at is coding and programming, and in fact Claude has been optimized for coding from the start. And current statistics shows that this is the most widely used tool by programmers and professional coders as well. It's also very good for abstract ideation and some sort of developing new ideas in any area of expertise, really, but something that requires out-of-the-box thinking. That would be something that Claude is good for. It's also very, Anthropic is also very careful on safety and very particular about safety. So it tends to be a more reliable model when it comes to the potential unsafe generations. Also, it tends to be better when it comes to avoiding the problem of hallucinations, which is this well-known problem with the AIs when we get information that is not truthful or just purely fabricated, right? This is called hallucinations. And Claude is optimized for not giving an answer unless it is certain of it, which works in most cases. And Claude will, better than other models, admit its own lack of knowledge when it encounters it, but it's not yet perfect. Hallucinations is a deep problem. Well, not the problem, but the side effect of the workings of this technology, really. So it's not that easy to eliminate as a problem. Although one of the approaches is so-called web search, which I'll talk about shortly. Now, weaknesses of Claude include its a slower release schedule than most other developers or most other providers, mostly because of its safety policies. So it undergoes more so-called red teaming before being released to the public. Anthropic aims not to be the first with certain innovations, but to sort of follow closely the leader in the field, but then enhance any provided solution with their own safety measures. There's also, as of right now, no ability to search the web live unless we are in the United States. So that ability has already been activated there. There's no voice mode, and Claude cannot generate images, as well, as opposed to most other models right now. Another very well-known solution, or a solution that is becoming more well-known, is Google's Gemini, whose newest model, Gemini 2.5 Pro, released, if I'm not mistaken, less than a month ago. As we saw on that LLM leaderboard, currently tops the worldwide rankings of the most capable AI models. And it is, in fact, an excellent overall model. I would say not as intelligent as O3 from OpenAI, but certainly the more usable, because we don't have such limits as with OpenAI. In fact, we can use quite a bit of Gemini 2.5 on a free tier, just with a simple Google account. Google is trying to catch up to OpenAI in this AI race. Hence, this I imagine this very open policy. But Gemini 2.5 is an excellent model and highly recommended all-purpose tool at the moment. Its particular strengths include, well, it's integrated into, first of all, the Google search ecosystem, right? So when Gemini performs searches, it relies on Google's expertise in cataloging and cataloging the internet and extracting useful information from it. So we can, well, its searches will typically be more competent than, say, searches performed by Microsoft Copilot, which relies on Bing which is not as good a search engine as Google. Also, Gemini has integrations with a native integration with our Gmail, with YouTube, so we can refer to transcripts of clips on YouTube, which for me at least is an invaluable addition in order to process all the knowledge contained on YouTube, right? This makes it manageable rather than just creating endless playlists. It's also an excellent coder. So very good at programming and what's called vibe coding, which I'll show shortly. Its weaknesses, Gemini tends to be quite politically correct, so censorship can be an issue occasionally. And its previous models, specifically Gemini 2.0, exhibited undesirable behaviors, and there were some quite serious incidents, including one where Gemini 2.5 threatened a student. Well, not threatened, but told them that they should exit this plane of existence, right? In quite less polite terms than I'm quoting here. So certainly very undesirable behavior. Not so far a problem with 2.5 as far as I know, and according to my own testing, also a far better and more competent model than the previous iteration. So Google seems to be in the lead now, or they can definitely be said to have caught up. Another model that we should know about, and that's also right up there with the top models, is Grok, which is developed by X, formerly Twitter, or we can think of it as Elon Musk's AI, because well, he is the driving force behind the development of this model, and also the financier of this model, which is why it was able to catch up so quickly, having built from scratch since last year. It is a generally good reasoning and research model. It's quite good at coding, though not as good as Claude or Gemini 2.5. Its unique strength includes native access to X or Twitter as a source of information, where it won't give you specific tweets due to privacy concerns or specific user information, but it can sort of give you the sense of the conversation on Twitter, and it can help you research certain topics, certain moods, certain mentions. Very useful for market research, very useful for developing or ideating new products. If you want to sort of put our ear to X, then Grok is an invaluable tool. For that. Its weaknesses, well, it can get a little sloppy in my experience when performing advanced reasoning tasks, and it has this weird quirk when it sometimes would input a Chinese or a Russian word into an otherwise English text. So I think that's being ironed out, but it has this imperfection. And finally, or almost finally, another tool that's very useful to know, still in the category of general purpose tools, is Perplexity. And Perplexity was the first AI tool to combine the functionality of a search engine with an AI chatbot, right? So a chat GPT that could also search the web in real time, rather than just relying on its on the knowledge it's been trained of. Yes, do we have a question? Sorry, was there a question?
No, I think someone has not muted themselves, and we could hear them. So please keep yourselves all muted, except for Mikołaj, of course. Yeah.
Until some time ago, when we asked ChatGPT a question that relied on information on very current information, so for instance, information on current events, it wouldn't be able to reply, or it wouldn't be able to reply truthfully. Because large language models, once they are trained on these large data sets that I spoke of, or once they've read the entire internet, well, they read the internet sort of downloaded in a downloaded form, as it were, right? So in a static form. And once they trained, they sort of internalize that knowledge, right? They don't update their own internal knowledge until a new model comes along. So if, say, my training set only included information up until October 2024, my large language models won't know anything that happened after that. So that's obviously a problem, right? If we want to use these tools for researching current information or for being up to date with what's happening, we want to be able to reference source of information on the internet. And Perplexity was the first tool to develop a solution to that specific problem, or the problem of hallucinations more generally, right? Because when an AI doesn't know something, or at least until recently, it would often hallucinate in those specific contexts. So current information where it doesn't have access to current information would be one scenario where it would often hallucinate, not out of any sort of spite, but well, we can think of it as AI not really wanting to admit its own lack of information, right? Metaphorically speaking, of course. And Perplexity, this approach has been copied by many others, most others, in fact, and now ChatGPT and Gemini and very soon Claude, Grok as well, have live access to web searches, so they can reference information that they search for live online, and then provide references to the source of that information, so we can double check that the information provided really is truthful and reliable. And well, this is a very good, or well, at least the most reliable way of addressing the problem of hallucinations for now. What's unique about Perplexity is that we can further specify whether we want the well-performing web searches. We can specify if we want the model to only search the web in general, just look for web pages that match a specific search criteria, or whether we want to narrow down the search just to academic sources, and will then search academic repositories for scientific papers relevant to our query, or if we want to listen to social media, or if we want to listen to discussions and opinions in places such as Reddit and extract information from there, we can also specify that selectively with this tool. So an excellent tool for all-purpose research. What also distinguishes it is that we can connect any number, any of the other large language models, or at least most of the other large language models. As of today, we can use within Perplexity Claude, thereby circumventing this limitation of Claude not being able to access the internet by itself. But also ChatGPT, GPT-4o, GPT-03, Gemini 2.5, and a range of other models as well. Weakness is that while it allows you to connect any of those advanced models, it also relies on that, meaning that Perplexity's native LLM, although they have one, is far less powerful than the top model. So they sort of rely on the connection to a more powerful AI. But as an integrated solution and interface, Perplexity is very noteworthy. And finally, something that made the rounds not long ago, or at least it was the subject of news, because, well, it disrupted not just the technological space, but also the US market space, meaning that many of the tech giants in the US, after the release of DeepSeek, suffered losses in the stock market. Because China, in releasing this model in January of this year, showed that they can develop top-tier large language models, even though they've been under sanctions regarding the most advanced computer chips, specifically the chips used to train those most advanced large language models. Those sanctions, I might add, having been specifically designed to prevent China from being able to develop top-tier large language models. So DeepSeek is a testament to that policy failing, because it is right up there with the most advanced, well, maybe not O3, but certainly with Gemini 2.5 and other similar models. And DeepSeek certainly has not said its last word. We can expect more from this company, and we can expect quite a bit more from coming from China in the recent months and years. So while right now this AI race that well, it's being called the AI race. Right now, the United States is certainly winning, and certainly has the most providers and the most varied ecosystem. China seems to be quite quickly catching up. Europe, unfortunately, is still lagging behind. There isn't a flagship commercial European large language model to speak of. There's a number of open source solutions developed mainly in France, but nothing strictly comparable to those flagship models that I've just discussed. Now I'm being mindful of the time, so let me just go through these advanced functionalities of large language models that have been available since recently, really. Real quick. So first of all, what we can do, well, I mentioned already, and it really becomes fully apparent when we well, go a bit deeper in prompt engineering and play with AI ourselves, developing advanced prompts. One of the first conclusions we come to is that the key to effectively using these tools is providing enough context, enough contextual information for the LLM to really understand the details of the situation. And the more contextual information and the better it is provided, the better results we can expect from working with LLMs. And providing enough context can be done either by elaborate prompting, through appropriate conversation management, which is sort of equivalent, because a long conversation is really equivalent to a long prompt in a certain respect. Certainly when it comes to these chatbot interfaces such as ChatGPT, or another alternative that is available to us is working with our own files, meaning we can just upload a file to ChatGPT and then use that file as context for performing even advanced tasks that are tailored to very specific circumstances. So say developing very detailed procedures based on our previous procedures, or based on our company policy, or based on our strategy documents, or based on our internal risk audit, or anything that requires nuanced and advanced understanding of context. We can just use that the documents containing that knowledge directly within the conversation, and thus developing what's being called the knowledge base of an organization. And there are methods of automating that process, namely of allowing a generative model to access an organizational knowledge base on a need-to-know basis, so to speak. So and there's a solution that sort of searches for the appropriate information from a set of even extensive database of company documents and other information, and extracts only the information that is relevant to the query, and then feeds that information to the large language models along with our query, in order to provide the most contextual and most competent reply. These are the so-called RAG systems, or retrieval augmented generation systems, which are also becoming quite popular within organizations. Now, I mentioned what I called reasoning models. The prime example being OpenAI O3, which I said was probably the most advanced and intelligent artificial intelligence currently available. And well, it truly is. I mean, I had the impression when the first encountering that, well, up until now, I sort of would use AI as an intellectual partner or as intellectual sparring partner in I don't know, creative discussions or developing some new ideas. And it was an apt description, right? An intellectual sparring partner. With O3, it's not so much a partner as a professor that is kind enough to give me his time. That would be the difference, right, between O3 and most other models, at least in my own experience. The key to the reasoning models, which has become is becoming a new paradigm in artificial intelligence, is allowing large language models to think before it answers. In a nutshell, right? This is an implementation of a prompting strategy which has been called chain of thought, which basically consisted of telling large language models to think step by step, or to develop a procedure, or to follow a procedure before just answering the question directly on the spot, as it were. And usually we can view either the full reasoning process or the representation of the reasoning process. In terms, in case of OpenAI, they only show part of the reasoning process. They don't want to show the full reasoning process, but we can sort of see what the model considers before giving an answer. And this is also similar to how humans behave, right? Because if we are forced to answer a difficult question on the spot, depending on our knowledge and previous experience, we might be able to give a competent answer, and AI certainly can give a competent answer in many cases on the spot. But just as with humans, and also just as with experts, if you give them a little time to think before they answer, the answer tends to be better. And so this is exactly the case with AI. This turned out to be so consequential in enhancing the results we get with AI, that this technique of chain of thought prompting has been built into the newer models, and they sort of automatically engage in this reasoning process before answering. So this being this newest paradigm in AI, and we can usually activate this when we see, for instance, right here, for instance, with Grok, right? This is the Grok interface. We see this little icon called Think. When we use that, click that icon, then we enable the reasoning mode, which means Grok will think before it answers. In case of ChatGPT, we need to select the reasoning model. In this case, being O3 being the most advanced one to perform this task. And another tool that's worth knowing about, it's called deep research, and this is an early example of called agentic systems, which I'll talk about in a moment. And this is a sort of integrated solution that's integrated into ChatGPT and now also Gemini and Grok, where rather than performing a single step tasks, an AI develops a plan for executing the task, and then follows that plan, adapting it as it encounters new information, right? So it can search, and we can give it an advanced search query. It will then develop a research plan, and then start researching, going to different websites, collecting information, and then as it encounters new information, it might, for instance, adapt the plan, right, or add additional steps to the plan, with the goal of achieving the task given to it by the user. These tools are meant for serious explanatory topics and as an aid in research. Deep research really benefits from advanced extended prompts, right? So when we use those tools, and in ChatGPT, for example, we activate that tool by clicking deep research, right? Which we see right here. I would recommend using this tool by developing a research prompt in a different conversation first, describing what it is that we want to research, then asking for an advanced description, and even turning that into a prompt directly into a different conversation. We can specify the context that we want the prompt for an AI research assistant that will go online and perform various searches. So if we have this in such an advanced prompt, this will make this deep research tool perform much better than using a simple prompt. So, just a tip there. So that's deep research. And another a very useful feature, also available since recently, is what might be called workspaces. It's called differently in different tools. It's called Canvas in ChatGPT and Gemini. It's called Artifacts in Claude. And this is basically a separate window that can be used to work on documents and other content separately from the main conversation. And it's very useful, for example, in coding tasks. Because we have the ability to run the code we execute directly, and I wanted to give you a quick demonstration of that. And this will also be an example of what's called vibe coding, meaning developing computer programs or computer applications without the use of or rather without deep programming knowledge and without really interacting with code directly. So I prepared a sample prompt right here with the task of building a simple standalone HTML page with a loan eligibility calculator for micro businesses. Right? I thought this should be something related to your sector, and this is an example of a business calculator that might be found useful. And if we want Claude to code this for us, this is all that we need to do. Just build a simple standalone HTML page, and executing this prompt will then first of all, we're seeing the what I call the reasoning process or the thinking process, right? Because I enabled an extended thinking mode, which turns Claude into a reasoning model, and we see the thinking process here, right? So he says what he'll build, what will be the functionalities of the website, how to calculate specific parts, and I see it started creating it within the thinking process, which is not good. So let me just stop that. Oh, that's a typo there, but it shouldn't matter too much. So again, it did this thinking. Oh, and here we go. Right. So this is this workspace I mentioned in Claude. This is called an artifact, and as I said in ChatGPT, this would be called Canvas. And there's also similar solutions and other tools. If we want to activate this within ChatGPT, we need to click here. And this also activates this within ChatGPT, and similarly with Gemini. I'm using Claude because, in my experience, Claude is the most reliable when it comes to developing such tools. Certainly more reliable than ChatGPT right now, although comparable to the most recent Gemini. And then let's hope this finishes fairly quickly. As we can see, it's developing this tool live, coding as we speak, and it truly is creating this tool based on the specific instructions that we're given here in my prompt. And this, while not extremely simple, this is still a fairly simple programming prompt. We could quite easily extend this prompt to include more advanced functionalities and more specifications of the tool that we want to develop. And in most cases, Claude will be able to perform to exact specifications. So we can see that we already have this very simple micro business loan eligibility calculator, and of course now the task would be to test it, of course, because if something doesn't work, we want to iterate on the tool, so to tell Claude what's not working, what further functionalities we want to add, and so on, and then work on improving this tool until we're satisfied. So just to see if it works. So, but I'm not a finance expert, so I cannot really assess this result. But you can see that developing a tool that can perform such a simple function or a more advanced function, because we can scale this not to the point of a full system or requiring some sort of advanced backend, but definitely it's advanced enough developing such tools that can function as standalone HTML pages. What I can do with this now is to publish this tool and copy link, which will allow me to share this with anyone. And if I copied it correctly, my screen just froze. My apologies. Not sure why that happened. Just give me a second.
Okay, so are there any questions to Mikołaj? If not, then let's carry on. Then let's keep a few minutes by the end for the questions.
So we discussed the sort of the general AI tools, which are in this category of large language models, and I showcased the flagship large language models, and also the capability of the quite recent capability of vibe coding, because we really reached the level of coding competence that allows for really quite simply developing these business tools. Only in the last 2 months, with the release of Claude 3.7 and Gemini 2.5. So this is a new and hot area, sort of developing computer applications, developing tools without any coding knowledge, and there are already vibe coding competitions, people developing games by vibe coding, so coding without programming, or rather programming without writing code, I would say. So those are the general AI tools. But as I said, there's also a very large and quickly growing ecosystem of specialist AI tools. And I wanted to show you is two websites where you can find future tools, but there's also Futurepedia. .io, where you can find really the well, first of all, we can see the breadth and depth of this new ecosystem, but you can also find specific tools tailored for specific business users and specific business cases. And Futurepedia is one of the better AI tool aggregators, meaning they collect and categorize and review tools that either have extensive AI integrations or are built around the abilities of AI. And for instance, if we want to find AI tools that are geared towards marketing or finance or project management or social media, we can find the specific categories here. And when we then go to the category, we can list the tools based on certain criteria, and we can also find out in detail about the specific tool. As I said, this is a curated AI tool aggregator, so we normally have reviews, pros and cons of any tool, its intended target audience, and other information. So this is a very good platform for comparing the different tools in the different categories. However, to really familiarize ourselves with the tool, we need to learn the tool ourselves. And as I mentioned, the ecosystem is really far too extensive for me to be able to be up to date with all the best and newest applications and tools, which is why I direct you to this website, Futurepedia, which is an excellent tool aggregator. If we see tools for finance, we can see what is offered in this specific category. So, for example, Vic AI is an AI-driven tools for invoice automation and analyzing financial documents to deliver insights. So this is a dedicated tool for this purpose. Book AI is tailored towards bookkeeping, also integrating automation thanks to LLMs. This is a forecasting tool, Anaplan, that uses the information, our organizational information, and can link information across different contexts in order to perform planning and modeling. So really a tool for every use, as it were. Although a word of caution, there will be tools, both of this and other such tool aggregators. Other aggregator being worth recommending is there is an AI for that. We will find tools here that are easily replicated with competent use of an LLM, which is why I call them multi-purpose tools. Because, well, if we have a dedicated or a specialist AI tool for writing marketing copy, we will definitely have utilities such as an interface designed for that purpose, or the ease of integrations with marketing systems, or with newslettering platforms, and so on and so forth. And those are certainly the benefits and pluses of using a specialist tool. But in terms of its sheer capability of creating good copy, we can do that ourselves with advanced prompting and with one of those multi-purpose tools, right? Which, as more integrations become available, we'll also be able to integrate within workflows and within solutions that perform functions very similar to those specialist AI tools. So that's and that's the case of these of the AI tool specialist ecosystem and those specialist integrations that are available. And this brings me in these last few minutes to the final subject, namely automation. And we can think of, first of all, AI can be a tool, first of all, for augmenting processes, where and this is the case of using it as a competence lever to extend our own abilities, allow us to reach for abilities previously unavailable. And that's one way of looking at the place of AI in the modern workplace. And also the way that I would recommend we view this technology. In most cases, and especially as we begin our adventure with AI, it's a brilliant tool for augmenting human work, human creativity, human expertise, human productivity, and so on. But another angle of looking at AI, and another possibility that is opened up by AI, is automation, meaning replacing tasks previously done by humans. And these can be either systems that are developed internally, or systems that are already integrated in full-blown solutions. Business process automation, or so-called robotic process automation, is not a new subject. This has been it has been something that's been possible for quite some time. But what's changes with large language models is the ability to apply those intelligent and flexible content transformations to our automated processes, and also going a level higher to allow AI to also develop plans and make decisions within a certain process, giving it some form of agency or autonomy, hence the term AI agent. Now, this traditional business process automation is something that we should, well, at least be vaguely familiar with. And that will be the case of platforms like Zapier, allowing us to, when a new email arrives and certain conditions are met, say a certain subject line or from a certain sender, then a file or an attachment is saved in a Google Drive, right? This happens automatically when certain conditions are met, right? Another even simpler example is an email autoresponder, right? That's also this type of traditional process automation. This is very highly effective if done correctly, very reliable. We can do it once and it can basically work forever, but it's also very narrow in scope and inflexible, right? Everything that happens needs to be predetermined. This is the sort of algorithmic procedure, right? So this is automation, but without the flexibility of AI. The level further is what I would say AI enhanced automation. So processes where we use AI to intelligently or flexibly transform content before using it in a further part of the process. So, for instance, we can parse unstructured data in this way and then send it in a structured format using the abilities of an LLM. We can analyze sentiment contextually, right? Rather than performing a simple word search and sentiment analysis, we can analyze sentiment fully contextually, including detection of such things like irony or sarcasm, which for traditional sentiment analysis systems were nearly impossible to do, right? We can dynamically respond to emails or transform content from one platform to another platform. Say we put out a blog post or a LinkedIn post. We can have an AI enhanced automation that automatically translates that into a Facebook post or a blog post or a tweet by sort of applying intelligent transformations and either expanding or contracting the content, adding new contextual information, so on and so forth, right? So AI performs predefined tasks, but does it flexibly and intelligently. It does not make its own decision, does not develop its own plan. It sort of it has a place within an assigned workflow, but within that planes it can utilize its intelligent abilities to perform intelligent functions. And finally, the last level of AI automations is this big subject in artificial intelligence now, which is AI agents. Now, these are systems that are built around LLM capabilities and are meant to utilize fully the intelligence of large language models, in the sense that LLM acts as the coordinator and central decision maker of the entire process. The role of the user is to just give the agent a task. The agent then develops its own plan, decides what tools or what integrations it needs to use. So, for instance, if it needs to reach to our email, or whether it needs to check the contents of our transcripts, or whether it needs to refer to some previous conversation, or any other such advanced functionality, and then it executes the plan, adapting to it as it encounters new information, with the view to executing or completing the task given to it by the user. And then, of course, we can develop systems or design systems that have humans in the loop, so-called, where a human needs to approve the key steps of the process, or needs to approve the plan of the operation, or it needs to approve the final outcome before allowing it to proceed further. There's a lot of flexibility in developing these systems. Well, it's not unlikely that in the near future AI agents will become the dominant form of use of artificial intelligence, moving us from this paradigm of AI as a chatbot to AI as a fully blown and semi-autonomous system. Now,
how do we get
to finish off, I just wanted to point you to some of the systems that are being currently, that are currently considered to be most advanced when it comes to agentic, these agentic workflows, or using AI to design and then execute its own process. And examples of that we already saw when I mentioned deep research and deep search. These are these are examples of agentic systems, right? Maybe not fully blown agents, but certainly they illustrate the approach of agentic system where an AI is given the general task, then it needs to develop its own or plan, and whether either ask the user for acceptance or not, and then execute on that plan, adapting it iteratively as it encounters new information. So these are some of the platforms and agents that are full-blown agents, one would say. So, for instance, Manus AI, which also made a splash some time ago, which is and also is a Chinese solutions. So, for example, it can perform for us. Here we go. So this is a demonstration of what Manus can do. And I was hoping to be able to. Hold on.
So is this the new frontier in?
Yes, this is definitely the new frontier. I was hoping to. Okay, this should illustrate that. This is a very short animation that sort of shows us this agent in action in a speed up sort of way, but we can see. So here, for instance, right, it developed a full plan of what to do in each step, and then it goes on to execute each part of this plan. We can watch it live as it performs all this action. Here, as I said, it's all sped up.
But what sort of a task is it performing right now?
My apologies. I should have pointed that at the beginning. Interactive space exploration website. Develop a modern interactive website for space enthusiasts, offering an immersive exploration of the solar system. Right. This is just an example that I picked at random. But as we can also see, this is quite a advanced prompt, quite a long prompt. I'm almost certain this prompt was developed with AI. But this is the kind of the workload that I would also recommend for these kinds of advanced tools and agents. They benefit from really advanced prompts. And here we can see the full process that this user underwent. This is quite a long task. But I think we're nearing completion now, and because he's moving on to creating a static HTML website. So this is one could say vibe coding, a few levels above these simple artifacts or canvas tools that we saw with Cloud. Because here we have a tool that doesn't just code something based on our instructions, but also develops the whole architecture and action plan for developing this information, then for developing or for executing the task, performs its own research, and then does its own coding, and then deploys the website on its own as well, which hopefully should be happening very soon. Or we can just skip to results so that we don't and here we go, right? So this is the this is just a visualization. I'm sorry, I should have okay, right. So this was actually too long a task for it to fully complete. So I picked. I didn't pick the best example, but ideally, what Manus would do is to develop the project fully, and then deploy the website. So here we have another example of a different task, and this is some a bacteria evolution simulation, which, as you can see, is a fully well, quite an advanced advanced tool that required far more sophistication in coding and programming than just being able to develop a business calculator as an HTML website. So yes, in answer to your question, this is definitely the way things are going towards these agentic systems and agentic solutions that, just given a task, do everything on their own, including possibly not far from now even developing full products and deploying them.
That's excellent. And are any of these agents available for free, or
Unfortunately,
is
well,
it based on
there is
subscription?
MindStudio,
Mhm.
which is, I wouldn't say is a full-blown AI platform, in that it doesn't have such advanced autonomy as Manus, for example. Manus is a sort of self-contained solution, whereas MindStudio is a solution for you to build your own agents using the sort of low code, no code strategy. So without needing to code, by sort of connecting various functionalities to each other. And MindStudio operates also as a browser extension, so we can access these agents of these assistants directly from our browser. These are not very advanced agents. These are I would actually call, well, tools rather than agents. But then it's a sort of still up in the air as to where exactly lies the boundary between an advanced AI tool and an agentic system, right? It's a little bit fluid. But MindStudio AI does offer quite a bit for free. So for instance, we can, here's an assistant that we can use in an extension that will take a YouTube video and generate a description from it. Or there is another agent, I think, that performs personal searches, meaning that it will scour the internet in terms and that do research on some kind of public figure or less public figure, right? So, for instance, if you want to find somebody's email address and it's not easily available, we can use that tool, and so on and so forth, right? So MindStudio would definitely be a good place to start exploring the capabilities of agents and assistants. Manus offers quite some functionalities for free, but then we need to pay for. Well, initially I was given 1,000 tokens, and I only performed one task of developing a website, and it consumed almost half of it. And then if we want to buy a subscription, it's quite more expensive than ChatGPT, for example. About twice as expensive, and doesn't really give us that much in terms of how much we can do. So yeah, for now it's quite expensive, but one of the trends in AI is also for the cost of computation on these tokens, right? Because this is really counted in millions of tokens. It has been gradually decreasing, so we can expect these tools to become more affordable, especially as the AI race is heating up and many providers want to find a niche for their own.
Sure. We've come to the end. Oh gosh, we've gone over the time, but we have two questions. Maybe we could quickly answer them. One is from Martina Grigorova from Syscredit, also MFC board member. Could you put this example of prompt in the chat? But I'm not sure which prompt.
The same prompt that I used for coding this calculator, perhaps.
Yeah, possibly. But maybe Martina, if you want, please go ahead, and if you're still there, feel free to clarify. And then another one, I think that's a sort of environment type of a question. Is there a way to see what the environmental impact is of using the AI tool, so that when using AI, it does not compromise the The impact mission of a social enterprise, knowing
Mhm.
the energy usage is very high with AI. Do you have?
Yes, it's true. I don't have the exact figures, and it's an excellent question,
Uh,
to which unfortunately I don't have a good answer.
Okay.
There are drawbacks of this technology, and one of them is definitely the environmental cost and the energy cost. Microsoft even, I think it's already concluded, but they certainly were in talks of reactivating one of the reactors at 3 Mile Island in order simply to power their own data centers used to train artificial intelligence. So the energy costs of training these largest models are quite staggering, and also the cost of using them in terms of energy usings are also quite staggering. And
Are
it's
they
not
bound to
something.
be reduced in the future? And
It's certainly well, the technology is becoming more energy efficient, but will that lead to the decrease of energy use, or rather than just expanding the current databases and using the same amount of energy to compute more? It's unclear the general trends of um, shall I say development just broadly indicate that we tend to use any increases in efficiency in order to maximize production even more rather than to optimize resources or care for the environment. So unfortunately, those dynamics apply to this technology as well. One sentiment that I've encountered, spoken by Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, no less, is that yes, AI will have environmental drawbacks. Yes, it will increase our energy uses, possibly quite considerably. But then it also represents the technology that has a real potential of helping us to solve climate change systematically. Finding a solution to that problem when we develop these systems to the level that we truly can speak of AI scientists and serious research done with the aid of AI, which I think it's well, it's certainly hopeful. It's not unreasonable to think that I expect that there will be scientific and technological breakthroughs that we will owe exclusively or largely to AI, and hopefully some of them will also help the environment. That's my
so
hope.
we agree to certain environmental damage in the hope that in the future this damage will be solved by
It's not a good
by the
trade, and it's not
progress
a
of AI.
trade I would likely make. It's not even something that I support. Because this is one area when I'm very
Yeah,
conflicted about this
sure.
technology. I'll be honest with you.
That's good.
But then it's not something that we as individuals really can do much about. Let's hope that Eric Schmidt is right. Eric Schmidt is right, and it really one of the fruits of this technology is the solution to global warming. Hopefully.
Okay, good, great. I think we are now 15 minutes over time, so let me thank Mikołaj for leading us through, navigating us through those new developments, and yeah, I realize we should keep up with them if we want to take full advantage of of the potential that these new developments bring to all of us. Please. For those who have not left yet, if you could fill out a very brief evaluation form, we would be very grateful for that. It always helps us a little bit to improve and offer better quality events based on your feedback. Other than that, let me also thank Olivia and Joanna and people involved in organizing this webinar. And with this, I would like to thank you all. And yes, please join us for the next week webinar on improving the digital skills of microfinance clients. And Olivia, if you would like to post the evaluation form right now, I think that would be great. Please do it before we all leave. So thanks again. Thank you, Mikołaj. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.